Blog Talk Radio.
No risk it, no biscuit.
Coming from the Arizona desert, presented by SBNation.com. For Arizona Cardinals fans, by Arizona Cardinals fans, with outsider and insider's perspective, this is Revenge of the Birds. Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans. This is your host, Jess for Revenge of the Birds Radio, and we are getting ready to face the San Francisco 49ers on the road. A game, personally, I am absolutely excited for. I'm thrilled. I cannot wait for this game. Both teams are 3-2. And normally, I chalk this up as a loss, almost automatically. Road game in San Francisco, just like a road game in Seattle. I'm almost guaranteed I'm chalking that into the loss column just because of the type of team that they're going to be. However, this week, the way the season has gone, we've seen a different looking defense for the Arizona Cardinals, and we see a different team in the San Francisco 49ers. They haven't been the juggernauts that they were a season ago. At 3-2, the Cardinals and the 49ers both are tied for second in the NFC West. And the Cardinals have a chance to sneak away with a big road win in the division. Now we'll talk more about that later, but before we get started, before I wander on and talk too much about what I want to talk about the game on Sunday, I've got a guest from Niners Nation, our SB Nation blog for the San Francisco 49ers. For those of you who are listening, you will be familiar with our SB Nation blog for the Arizona Cardinals, RevengeOfTheBirds.com. And you'll see there that we've got some information there. We've got a couple of articles where we've kind of combined with Niners Nation on Wednesday. We did a post on the under the radar players. On Thursday, it was why each team can win, why the 49ers can win, why the Cardinals can win. But anyway, I have a guest on the line from Niners Nation. It's Trey Niner, and he comes to us, and we'll be talking about the San Francisco 49ers. Got lots of questions for him about, well, what's gone wrong so far? What are the frustrations been? Why 3-2? I'll even ask him about Alex Smith. Is there any lamenting that he's gone now that the Chiefs are 5-0? Colin Kaepernick, why isn't he playing at the dynamic level he was a season ago? But let's go ahead and bring on Trey Niner, and we're gonna have him for a while. So let's listen up. And, well, Trey, thanks for coming on tonight on the Revenge of the Birds radio show. How's it going?
Good, you?
I'm doing great. And, well, we've got ourselves this weekend a fairly big matchup, considering that at this point in the season, the 49ers and the Cardinals both have the same record. Probably not what anyone had predicted at this point. What has been the reaction so far to the start of the 49ers season? 3-2, not bad, but they haven't been the juggernaut that's been expected.
Yeah, I think we all had high hopes. It's, probably expected, and you guys can probably relate from, the last time you guys went to the Super Bowl, and you have nothing but high hopes to build on that the next year. But I saw somewhere today, and I can't remember exactly where, that you can't expect every season to build on the previous in the NFL because too much changes. That's just the way that it goes. There's too much parity. So, there's definitely been some disappointments. I think that everybody expected that we may lose a game here and there. I think most 49ers fans expected that we'd drop the game in Seattle, just because that's kind of been our Achilles heel, and they're so hard to play up there. But I, for one, was still holding out hope that we'd win, and I was absolutely crushed at that game. So at this point, going forward, I think I've made a rule that I'm just going to count it as a loss in the column every year, and that way I'll be pleasantly surprised if it actually turns out the opposite way. So I think, like I said, we're disappointed, to have lost 2 games, but we got through the meat of the schedule. I mean, it seems like it should get easier from here if everything holds true, but we're still in decent shape, just like you guys.
Now, if I can imagine that what was probably the case wasn't so much the loss itself in Seattle, but was the fashion and the way in which things went. Am I right that the more disappointing wasn't necessarily the loss, but that they got manhandled in that first week?
Yeah, and that's the same thing that happened last year too. So I think that's why a lot of us were really hoping that we'd win that game, or that we'd at least be competitive and it would be a good game, because we got manhandled at the end of the year last year in Seattle after having played pretty well with Colin Kaepernick in the starting lineup and kind of thinking that the future was here and everything. So I think that we hoped that it was going to be competitive and, in the back of our minds that it could be a win and we'd get some vindication from what happened last year. But definitely disappointed to have a second straight appearance up there where we really just looked out of sorts. And, like I said, I don't know what it is, but I don't have any confidence that it'll be any different the next time we play up there. So,
and understandably so. It's probably the hardest stadium to play out, without a doubt. That place is insane. Now, what happened against Indianapolis? What happened there? I thought you guys were going to handily beat them because of the way they really can't stop anybody in the pass. Now, granted, they didn't have a great defense, but they really kind of stuck it to San Francisco. What happened in that game?
Well, I think it's 2 things. I think that Indy is a little bit better than maybe we thought initially. I think that, and I'm sure you didn't, and many of your listeners maybe didn't, but I think that at the beginning of the year it was easy for a lot of people to remember that they went to the playoffs last year, that they weren't a bad team last year, despite being the first year with Andrew Luck and everything being new there and the end of the Peyton Manning era and everything else. But they're a better team, I think, than people give them credit, and that's kind of borne itself out even after they beat the 49ers. So there was that, and then there was also kind of the lingering issue that we're having a hard time defeating man coverage. We're having a hard time in the passing game right now with Crabtree and Manningham being injured, with Bolden being the only target, and, and Vernon Davis, but he was injured in the Seattle game and didn't play in that game. So I think that we kind of started to see the sort of the pattern in those 2 games, those 2 back-to-back losses that I'm kind of surprised that St. Louis and Houston didn't just blueprint and copy that exactly. And being that, you sell out to the run, and then you just play man coverage on everybody on the outside and do your best there. And Colin Kaepernick just hasn't really looked comfortable throwing guys open and making contested throws to anyone other than Anquan Bolden, and having, like I said, Vernon Davis out for that game against Indianapolis, that just definitely hurt the passing game. And it seemed like that was a big part of the plan in the game. And, I'm not the only one to say that we were just a little disappointed that the game plan didn't sort of adapt and shift back to the power run game. Working.
So with Kaepernick, obviously the loss of Crabtree has hurt. The loss of Manningham has hurt. Do you believe that has more to do with perhaps the drop up in production for Kaepernick rather than defenses being more ready for what he offers in the way of the read option? How much have the 49ers been running that read option as opposed to last year?
Really none. I mean, there's been a few plays, but it's been pretty evident to most of us watching that it looks like it's almost designed every time to be a handoff, or that there's just not the same sort of, really wait till the last minute in the read. I wrote a piece about it last week about Kaepernick and about what I think he's going through right now, and I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think losing his weapons in Crabtree and Manningham plays a big part in having Vernon Davis out for that game against Indy hurt. But I think it's also the additional things that they're putting on his plate, and maybe some of the things that they're whispering in his ear. I don't think that we know, or maybe we'll ever know exactly what he's being told, but he definitely seems to be playing more cautious this year. Even when he does run the ball, whether it's a breakdown in a passing play or whether it's a read option keeper or something, he doesn't seem to be running with that sort of goal, that sort of end game in mind, that, like, I'm going to score on this play, just that real aggressiveness.
Which is really interesting because obviously RG3 had issues because of the way he would take on defenders, but I never thought that last year, and it was the case with both Kaepernick and Wilson, that when they ran the ball, yes, they ran it well, but I never felt that they were the type. They ran safely, they ran effectively, they ran well, but was Kaepernick taking hits? I don't recall that last year.
No, and I really, I'm really not concerned about that, to be honest with you. I mean, he has spindly legs, but the guy's 6'4", 230, 235. I mean, he's built
a little bit less than what Culpepper was. I mean, lighter, but the same type of frame, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, the guy ran for 10,000 yards, I think it was, in college. I mean, he's not a stranger to running the ball and getting tackled every which way. And he never even got up slow last year, whether it was a sack or a tackle in the run play. So I think a lot of us were like, hey, hey, Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, why are we being so safe with this guy? I mean, we got to win games. We got to advance the ball. We have to get first downs and score points. He's fine with it. He never seemed the type to be susceptible to injuries, getting hit and things like that. Granted, anything can happen. And it, like I said, I don't know if it's being whispered in his ear or if it's him saying I'm playing on a second round contract and I can't renegotiate, and so I need to take care of myself. I don't know what it is, but he's not playing with the same fire and the same aggression.
Does it, a little bit unrelated, but does it smart on the other end for 49ers fans to see Alex Smith having the start that he's having with the 5-0 start with Kansas City? Does that still get discussion about how Smith lost his job to Kaepernick and was sort of cast to the side, even though, granted, he was not a stellar player, but he did things really well and was having the best year of his career. And then to see him in Kansas City with the start that he's having, does that get any play in San Francisco right now?
No, I think that all of us look at what Alex Smith is doing in Kansas City and say this is exactly what he did for us in 2011 and the first half of 2012. I mean, it's exactly the same thing. He's got a great defense. He's managing, the offense. He's not turning the ball over. They're running the ball. That's enough. If you've got those things put together, you can beat, say 8 out of 10 teams in the NFL if you can do those things well. So, we're not surprised by that at all. But to your point, I think to an extent there are some fans that say, hey, why can't we do that with Kaepernick? Or what's the problem with, these sort of lower passing yard, lower passing production type of games if they crank out the win and we're running the ball and the defense is playing well. So especially last week where the rushing yards were so, were so many and the passing yards were so few, there was kind of a split fan reaction to that, and that, one faction says there's a problem with the passing game, and then the other faction says, wait a minute, this is what we did with Alex Smith the last 2 years or year and a half that he was here, and that served us well. So just because Kaepernick's athletic and has a bigger arm doesn't mean that we can't do that with him as well.
Right, but he's a different kind of player. I'd take that point and say, oh yeah, it worked with Alex Smith, but that's what you wanted to do with Alex Smith because he wasn't going to be the dynamic playmaker that the Kaepernick is. And for people to say, hey, let's turn him into Alex Smith, is to make Kaepernick something that he's not, which would almost hamper the way he plays. I can completely understand why. Well, open it up. That's what he did well, and that's why they had successful this year. I get the personnel, I guess, is where the issue is because of the injuries that you've had on your players that play out on the edge and for your playmakers. Offensively, how is that passing game working? You've got Anquan Bolden with, almost half of your passing offense. And how much is this team still the traditional, hey, we're going to smash it, we're going to just smash up the middle, we're going to keep running the ball, and we're going to make plays in the passing game? How much is that still the case? And is that what the approach is still these days, where you're run first with Gore and with Hunter, and obviously I'm looking here at the stats that LaMichael James hasn't gotten the play that he's that he had at times with 7 carries so far in 5 games. What is the offensive philosophy this year?
Well, it's been two different things, and back to your point about Kaepernick versus Alex Smith and the style of offense that you run and everything. I think that what we've seen this year and even in the last year a little bit is, yes, Kaepernick has ability that far exceeds what Alex Smith is able to do. He has big playability. He has a bigger arm. It does open the offense up to the potential of those kinds of plays that you never even had the possibility in the past. But we've also seen this year that, hey, this team as a team can still win games when the opposing defense is presenting itself as such that, you know, we're going to be able to run the ball against the opposition, and that's succeeding. Then we'll take that. You know, and that's something that, like I said, that there's a faction of people that had a really hard time with the way the last couple games went down. But the fact of the matter is, and Joe Staley said this in his press conference today, he said, you know, we were running the ball like crazy against, you know, last week against Houston, and the defense was playing lights out. We're scoring points running the ball. Why on earth would we change that? You know, that was a formula in that game that worked. And whether you have a playmaker in Kaepernick or not, if that works and you're scoring points and the defense is doing its job, then, you know, it'd be silly to change that. But, you know, in terms of what the offense is, I think they're trying to figure that out. I think that they really thought they were going to come out and be able to just sling the ball around and get creative and do whatever they wanted. And then they found out that, there's going to be games where we can't do that, you know, and we need to be ready to go back to the old power game. And Staley said that today too. He said, you know, we've gone back to some of the, you know, the real power run scheme stuff that we haven't done in a long time. Like, he's probably talking a year or more ago when that was the entire team, was the power run game. So I think they're finding their way right now. Like I said, I think that what it's going to become and what we hope is going to happen is that the team takes advantage of whatever it's presented with, and you're going to have a little bit of a mix of the old school power running game, and when it presents itself, then you utilize Kaepernick's arm and his legs and the big playability.
But you can safely say that the read option is almost an afterthought this year?
You know, like I said, I have a theory, and others have echoed this too, that Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh have a little bit of like mad scientist to them, and you never know how much they're trying to outsmart and how many steps of reverse psychology they're trying to pull at a time. So we really kind of wonder, is there some end game in all this that everybody gets kind of, and I've used the term rope-a-dope like a dozen times since Harbaugh came. But is there some way that, and I wouldn't say that they're intentionally throwing games or playing poorly on purpose, that's not what I'm saying, but is there some way that they really want everyone in the NFL to believe something about them as an offense? And the closer the postseason gets, whether they need to make a playoff push or whether they get into the playoffs, and that's the time.
And they unveil it then?
And then they just let it all out. I mean, do they want people to think the read option is dead? Do they want people to think that Colin Kaepernick can't throw the ball down the field? I mean, in the back of your head, you're wondering, is there some crazy end game here, and it's just going to explode at the end of the year, you know?
They're pulling. Jim Harbaugh's pulling a Greg Popovich to change sports, where the Spurs sit their stars for a couple of games now and again, just for the sake of the long-term picture. Hey, the regular season's 82 games, but we're in this for more than 82. We're in it for the 16 wins after that. Injury-wise, how are things on the injury front? I heard Patrick Willis is back practicing for the first time in quite some time. What does it, in particular, on the defensive side of the ball, look injury-wise? We know Aldon Smith is kind of a thing of its own right now, aside from the substance abuse issues, the treatment he's getting, and then now to find out that he has weapons charges pending.
It's been ugly on paper, that's for sure. And I think that as every domino has fell, 49ers fans have been kind of like, you know, waiting for more nails in the coffin, so to speak. But the good news is that the depth that we have has really stood up and played pretty well. And the losses, the absences that we've had on defense haven't been as big of a factor as you'd think they would be. Obviously, Willis was out for a couple games. Smith's been gone for a couple games now. Aldon, that is. Ian Williams, the starting nose tackle at the beginning of the season, broke his ankle in Seattle. He's on IR, done for the season. Ray McDonald has a biceps tear that he's going to try to play through, and supposedly he's a starting left defensive end in base, defensive tackle and nickel. That supposedly is not going to affect his strength or have a risk for further injury. So, we've dodged some bullets here and there. Nnamdi Asomugha was the nickel corner. He's had knee issues the last 2 weeks. But again, fortunately, Tremaine Brock, the depth, stepped up and has had 2 really good games, including the 2 interception game and a pick 6 last week. And Glenn Dorsey stepped up for Williams. As I mentioned, the starting nose tackle at the beginning of the season, Glenn Dorsey stepped up. He's the highest rated player on defense, according to Pro Football Focus right now for the 49ers. So, Bowman, Michael Wilhoit, which is Patrick Willis' backup at the other inside linebacker spot, Wilhoit stepped up and played pretty well. So, the depth has really stepped up and played well. And as I mentioned earlier, the toughest part of the schedule, if what we think we know now in the NFL in terms of this season holds true, the toughest part of the schedule should be over. If we can get over this hump, we've got guys that are coming off of the PUP and the NFI lists, and hopefully that fortifies the team at the right time and enables us to be at our strongest in December when you need it to be.
Great. How do the 49ers fans perceive the Arizona Cardinals at this time? Because it's a completely different staff. The offensive philosophy is different. The defensive staff has changed. And while the defense has put up numbers, it's a different kind of defense in the way they go things. How are 49ers fans viewing the Cardinals at this juncture in the season?
To be honest with you, I think that I probably represent the same perception of the Cardinals that a lot of 49ers fans have. Maybe not all of them. I certainly wouldn't say that. But my perception of the Cardinals has been for the last couple of years that they're a team that has struggled pretty mightily on offense at times, has had a pretty consistent defense the last couple of years. And bottom line is, you kind of feel 2 ways about playing Arizona. Every time you play them, you're like, in one way, you're like, they're not that good, we should beat them. And then another way, you're like, it's a division opponent. They've always played us tough. They have a good defense. This could be a trap game. We drop games to them all the time. So it's kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde. On one hand, we feel like we're a better team and it shouldn't be an issue, and on another hand, we're reminded of the fact that we get our butts handed to us or have a close game, on a regular occasion when we play Arizona. So in this division, I'm sure everybody feels this way within their respective division, but I think it's borne itself out, at least in the last couple of years, that this division has been hard to get a win no matter who you play.
No doubt. There's definitely now. The one thing that the dynamic I cannot wait to see is because, now I'll say last year, 49ers handed it to the Cardinals on both, regardless of the score. 49ers dominated both sides of the ball. No matter, and the Cardinals' off defense was fantastic last year, but there was one thing that they were ill-equipped, and they just did not do well, and that they didn't stop the run well overall. They ended up 28th in the league. Now, take the 58-0 game that they had in Seattle out of the picture, and they did okay against the run. But things have changed this year. They were fantastic against the pass, and they were at best mediocre or average against the run. This year, the table has turned, and that actually last year it played out really well against teams like Green Bay, teams like Atlanta, where the passing game was able to be neutralized, and it made it for a real close game. But for the division, it made it really bad because there's San Francisco, there's Seattle, and even still last year when they had Steven Jackson, St. Louis, where those are 3 teams that are run-first teams. This year, the table's turned. Their run defense so far has been fantastic. And so I'm looking forward to see how they match up. It's going to be a tougher matchup than I believe a year ago, especially with the playmakers on the outside being gone, because it's almost like if you look at the matchup with the Cardinals defensively, hey, they've got Patrick Peterson can trail Anquan Bolden. Bolden has given the Cardinals fits before, but that was when A.J. Jefferson and Willie Gay was covering him. There's Patrick Peterson could take him out of the equation. They've got a run stuffing defense the offense is still a big issue. So I don't know how we're going to do that way, but I have a feeling this is going to be an absolute dogfight. Very physical, very nerve-wracking for the fan on both sides, especially with the return of Darryl Washington. So do they see that perception of the change of the defense as opposed to last year? They stopped the pass fantastic. This year, it's all about the run defense. It's about stopping the run.
I don't know how many 49ers fans have really picked up on that, to be honest with you. I think that everybody, sees Patrick Peterson and the Honey Badger and figures that the pass game is still the big deal. But, Arizona's always had a pretty decent front seven, especially defensive line. They've always been strong there. So, I don't think from a talent perspective it's been an issue. It's just the 49ers always seem to go into those games with just a really power run mentality. And it seemed like those games were the ones that, for the most part, turned out in our favor in terms of, we wanted to run, we were able to run. I have two sort of mini questions in response to what you said, and in terms of the Cardinals being able to stop the run. First of all, my question would be, how many teams that utilize a fullback on a regular occasion have the Cardinals played this year, and how have they performed against those teams?
I haven't paid much attention to that. We played Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay uses a fullback sometimes. Carolina uses two backs. So we do see that from time to time. I can't think off the top of my head if we played anyone else that uses the fullback set, because we played St. Louis, we played Detroit, and then New Orleans. And New Orleans tore us apart. Other than that, New Orleans tore them apart. But I can't answer that about the fullback. I'm not sure. I don't recall.
The only reason that I ask is that through 5 games, Bruce Miller, the 49ers fullback, who, by the way, we all are hoping and praying that he turns out to be the second coming of Tom Rathman, because so far it's been maybe I wouldn't say it's been the case, but so far he's been a guy who's caught passes and done really well, especially this year and the end of last year in blocking. He's been on the field over 50% of the plays for the offense. So I think they're using him a little bit in the Delaney Walker mode in terms of throwing passes to him out of the flat, motioning him around, sort of the Swiss Army knife of the offense. So he's been involved a lot, and the reason that I ask that is that a lot of teams that run the ball out of single back sets, shotgun, a little bit more of a spread mentality, or maybe 12 personnel with two tight ends. A lot of draws, a lot of misdirection and things like that. Whereas the 49ers, like I said, will throw 3 tight ends in there and a fullback. We'll go into 22 personnel and run fullback and 2 tight ends. It's really, when they want to run the ball, they'll go really, really run heavy with the personnel. So that's the reason.
And they'll just say to the defense, "Hey, we're going to run the ball. Go ahead and try and stop it." I like that.
and
I kind of like that mentality.
Miller's really been charged with that. They know it's coming. You have to get in there and you have to make the block. I mean, we were so used to having Moran Norris for years, and Frank Gore loved him. But you'd watch him on tape and you'd watch him in the game, and the guy would fall on his face and he would completely miss blocks. And it was like, your presence alone to shift the defensive personnel into base defense is not enough. You have to actually execute your blocks. I mean, you have to knock somebody on their butt and try to get to the second level. You need to block 1 to 2 guys every time you're out there. That's the only way we're going to get it done. So Miller's been able to do that, which is why I asked that question. The other question is completely escaping me now in terms of the pass. Well, I'll see if it comes to me later.
Well, what do you think if you had to make a prediction? Obviously, Vegas is heavily favoring the 49ers. I believe it's an 11-point spread. Most places 11, 12 points. And with an over-under at about 42, I think that's really high. I would hammer the under for that, and I actually think, at least Vegas-wise, I think it's almost a safe bet from my perspective that the Cardinals will cover, because I don't see this game, based on what the 49ers have been doing offensively so far, will be able to put up the points on the Cardinals' defense. And whether the Cardinals can put up any points on offense is a different story. But I think it's going to be a really tight game. if you had to decide, would you see, one, how bad do you think the 49ers will win? Obviously, you're going to I would imagine you're going to predict a 49ers victory. Two, will it beat pick? Will it cover the Vegas spread?
I learned last year, particularly games against Minnesota and the New York Giants, who actually came to Candlestick. In both cases, we lost. And in both cases, I did not expect to lose, A, or B, to lose in the fashion in which we did. So I learned last year in particular because before the Minnesota game, I had posed questions such as, by how much will the 49ers win? Or how embarrassed will Minnesota be after this game, and things like that. I learned last year not to make any bold predictions, really to make any predictions for a win or loss. Like I said, Seattle goes in the loss column at this point until proven otherwise when we play up there. But I will not say I believe the 49ers are going to win this game because it has bitten me on more than one occasion. And I don't like looking past. So I'm not going to say that they're going to win. I will say what I often say, especially when playing at home. I think we should win. I think the 49ers should win this game. I think that they have a license to win this game and all the ability to win this game. I do not know if they will win this game. I think that the spread is high, but I also just really don't know who's going to show up. I mean, there have been games over the last couple of years that have just come out of nowhere in either direction for the 49ers. And, I mean, they may unleash their full anger of everything that's happened this season on the Cardinals and everything bounces the right way and they win by 30 points. I don't know, though. It could also be a close game that comes down to the end. I really have no clue. To that point, though, the other question that I was thinking about earlier, well, not even question, but point to pose, was that the 49ers pass rush is probably going to be pretty key in this game because, as you said, there's guys that are out. I assume Willis is going to play. Obviously, Aldon Smith is gone. It's going to be pretty interesting to see if they can generate a pass rush. I know that's kind of been an issue for Arizona in the past, and I believe it's continuing this year, and I believe
yes, yes, it is. Offensive line play is a major issue.
Yeah, so I mean, if we without Aldon Smith, that's been a big part of our pass rush for the last couple of years. Is Aldon Smith and Corey Levinier is a promising rookie who rotates with Dan Skuda, who plays mostly base rundowns and things, but I just really don't know. Navarro Bowman has played amazing in the pass rush angle from inside linebacker spot, which is not where you expect it to come from. But overall, the pass rush has fallen off a little bit, and the sack numbers have fallen off a little bit. So I really think that the Niners' ability to run the ball, if Arizona plays man coverage, then the Niners really have to be able to run the ball. And I think the pass rush from the 49ers is going to be the whole thing. I think if you were to monitor those aspects of the game, that's going to tell you everything.
Well, great. Did you ever remember the question that you had before?
I think it had to do with the pass rush. I think I was
okay. Well, yeah, yes.
Bring up the fact that I don't really know where our pass rush is going to be from week to week right now with Aldon Smith being out, and I know that that's a sort of a weakness for Arizona. So I think that was what I was going for there.
Yeah, I mean, last week the sacks aren't horrible. I mean, we didn't have like we had last year the 9-sack game against St. Louis, but there's been consistent pressure. I believe last week on like the 30 dropbacks that Carson Palmer had, that on 15 of them there was pressure. I believe he was only sacked once, but there was pressure, and he didn't have a good game. He threw 3 interceptions, and in the end it didn't end up hurting them. But that Carolina front seven, that front four, was dominating the offensive line, which is we'll see what happens against San Francisco. I really appreciate your time, Trey. No bold predictions from you. I can understand why you don't want to do that on the fan side. Great insight from the part of yours. Thank you so much. You've improved the show immensely, and we'll have to talk to you in a few weeks when we get closer to the end of the season when we host you guys.
Yep, absolutely.
So there you have it, guys. That was Trey Niner we spoke to. about the San Francisco 49ers, and that was a great amount of insight. One of the things that really stuck with me was the comment about when we were talking about Colin Kaepernick and how they're kind of going back old school, back to the Alex Smith days of game manager when they're really focusing on running the ball. I pulled up some stats while he was on the line, and in the last two games, both were big wins. They put up 35 points against the St. Louis Rams, and they put up 34 points against the Houston Texans. Against San Francisco, they ran the ball, against the Rams, that is, San Francisco ran the ball 40 times for 219 yards. Against Houston, in a 34-3 win, they ran the ball 36 times for 177 yards. That is going to be, I think, the key. What will the Arizona Cardinals rush defense do against a team that is, as we have seen, a dominant rushing team? This isn't the San Francisco 49ers team. This isn't a team like the Detroit Lions or like the Arizona Cardinals that uses their running game to balance out enough, just to balance out, to give enough of the threat to open up the passing game. This is a 49ers team that intends on running the football a lot and then taking shots down the field in the passing game. I cannot wait. Again, I talked about in the beginning just how excited I am about this game. The Arizona Cardinals defense has been fantastic against the run. This isn't something we saw a year ago. And I mentioned that to Trey. A season ago, the way that the defense was assembled, it wasn't a good matchup against our division teams. A season ago, we had three teams that were run heavy. You have Steven Jackson with the Rams, no longer. You had Marshawn Lynch with the Seattle Seahawks, and you had Frank Gore with the San Francisco 49ers. The Cardinals' defense, while early on in this season, was fairly effective against the run. They weren't great. They were effective enough. But they could get worn down, especially the way the offense played. This season, the run defense has been fantastic. Fantastic. It's been much stronger than the pass defense that we saw against at least the first 3.5 games. Well, 3.5 of the 5 games. Matthew Stafford was able to pretty much move the ball anywhere passing. Drew Brees tore apart the team. Sam Bradford, the same thing, tight end. Mike Glennon didn't really cause, on and off, there was issues with Mike Glennon. And then for the first half, Cam Newton could throw the ball wherever he wanted. The Cardinals were playing soft. They were giving the receivers too much room. But so this time around, we're gonna be facing a San Francisco team that loves to run the ball. And the fact is, the Cardinals can play some defense against the run. I want to see them match up and hold them to the run. Then what happens to that San Francisco offense? They scored They scored 69 points in the past 2 weeks on a heavy dose of running. What will that offense look like if the Cardinals defense continues its strong play? Will Colin Kaepernick be able to make plays? We've seen what rushing quarterbacks do to the Cardinals. Not much. They don't do much. With the speed that we have on the defense, Darrell Washington, Carlos Dansby, Michael Vick has never been great. Colin Kaepernick didn't have a great running game. Cam Newton. And to his point, Colin Kaepernick has not been running much. And the read option has almost been an afterthought, at least for now. He doesn't have the playmakers on the outside. So defensively, I really like this matchup, more so than I did even 2 weeks ago. Because I've seen what the Cardinals have done. If you look at the passing attack that the 49ers have, they get half of their offense from Anquan Bolden alone. He's not going to beat you down the field. Who do we have for that? We got Patrick Peterson. I know we do play some zone. I know the Cardinals play some zone. And if that's what they plan on doing the whole game, well then Anquan Bolden's going to pick him apart because he's so good. He's so good. He knows exactly where to go. He'll find a soft spot. He'll make a catch, and they'll get first downs and move the chains. But look at this for a second. Take away Anquan Bolden, and then what? You've got Vernon Davis to worry about. Yes, that is a valid concern considering the play of the tight ends. Jared Cook, Jimmy Graham, and then for the first half, it was even Greg Olsen. But if they can't run the ball successfully, and they've taken Anquan Bolden out of the picture, like Trey said, Colin Kaepernick has not had the confidence to simply throw the receiver open. The only receiver he's been comfortable throwing to in coverage is Bolden. Take Bolden out of the picture, what do they have? They're going to have an offense that's not very good. Obviously, there are questions on the offensive side of the ball for the Cardinals. And that could be their demise. But if their defense plays the way they have, and the Cardinals don't turn the ball over, I really, really think the Cardinals have a very real chance of winning this game. And that's why I'm so stoked for this game. They've got wins over the Lions. Lions look good, 3-2. They beat the Panthers, not so great team. They beat the Bucks. They're a disaster. They got hammered by the Saints, understandably so. They've been doing that to pretty much everybody. And they could have, should have, would have had a win against the Rams. Their offense fell apart late. And so, what we have coming up this weekend, we've got a divisional foe on the road. Well, it's a win the Cardinals frankly need. They need to win. As we look at the schedule, the Cardinals need to win 2 of the 4 games that they have in the next 5 weeks. They need to win 2 of those to be considered, in my opinion, to stay in the playoff race. You would think that the Seattle game on a short week at home gives them the best advantage, and I agree. I agree it does. But how great would it be to steal a win on the road in San Francisco? That could turn the season around. Put them at 4-2. Put them a game up on San Francisco. Give them confidence going to the Seattle game. Could you imagine a 4-0 run over this? 7-2? No, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to go one day at a time. We're going to try to get better every day. No, I don't predict a Cardinals victory. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for this game. I'm not loathing the fact. At the beginning of the year, I was like, that's a loss. But the San Francisco 49ers have their weaknesses. And that's what I'm excited for. We have a post going up. And, well, by the time you listen to the show, the post will be up. And Sean Church, one of our talented writers on RevengeOfTheBirds.com, looks at 3 keys for an Arizona win. Well-timed blitzes, running the A and B gaps, and the deep passing game has to get going offensively. Now, here are some stats when it comes to Colin Kaepernick. When he's blitzed, now, the Cardinals have blitzed almost half of the dropbacks on pass attempts. Almost half. That's insane. That's far more than any other team in the league. But this is what Colin Kaepernick does. Now, obviously, number 1 in the league against the blitz, guess who? Yeah, that would be Peyton Manning, and understandably so. He's incredible. Colin Kaepernick, in 47 dropbacks that he's been blitzed, has completed 23 of 37 passes with 4 touchdowns and not a single interception. That kind of goes, he's waiting for that. Now, Colin Kaepernick is a far different player when he is not blitzed. In 112 plays, 95 attempts, 51 completions, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions with a passer rating of 65, and he's been sacked 7 times. Can the Cardinals generate enough pressure with 4 to have to make him find someone in coverage? Take this a season ago, 2 seasons ago. You know how often the San Francisco 49ers blitzed John Skelton? 0. Because Skelton would be his own undoing. If we can get minimal pressure, if we can keep him in the pocket and have to make him make a decision, the stats say that the Cardinals are going to be more successful. Now, the Cardinals dial up the blitz all the time and do so effectively, as evidenced by the 7 sacks that they had of Cam Newton a week ago. But when you take a player out of coverage, Kaepernick likes that. And it opens up the field a little bit. It allows Anquan Boldin or Vernon Davis to slip into an open spot of the field. So if I had a matchup that I was going to watch, that I'm really, really looking forward to, obviously there's going to be offensive line play, but I want to see what the Cardinals do defensively if they just stick Patrick Peterson on Anquan Boldin, or if they line him up anywhere else. Because Boldin is incredible. He knows how to play football, and he will get numbers, and he will cause problems, and he's so tough and so competitive. I want to see Patrick Peterson on him, and I want him to be able to take him out of the game. That's what happened against Seattle. He was taken out of the game, and it frustrated him. Anquan Boldin plays with a chip on his shoulder. Let's make that chip. Let's frustrate him. So Sean's talking about the blitzes. He's talking about the passing game. I want to see 2 things. I want to see that rush defense continue. And 2, I want the defense to take out Anquan Boldin. They take the running game away. They take Anquan Boldin away. Guess what? San Francisco is very, very vulnerable. Their defense is fantastic. Okay? But without Aldon Smith on the pass rush, they're less scary. That if all they think the Cardinals will need is 1 or 2, if their defense plays the way they should, 1 or 2 good drives. The rest they can have, they could sputter here and there, end up having to punt, kick in a couple of field goals. But I think the Cardinals, if they can put together 2 good scoring drives, like they've been able to put together a couple over basically 1 a game, 2 of those, and play defensively the way they have been, this is going to be a really good, exciting weekend. I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm excited for the weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and close up shop. Cardinals fans, thank you for listening to my ramblings. And I appreciate once again, like to thank Trey Niner from NinersNation.com for his half-hour visit with Revenge of the Birds Radio. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Facebook. You know where to find us on the web, Cardinals fans. You're already there. RevengeOfTheBirds.com. This is your host, Jess Root, signing off. Talk to you next week.
You've been listening to Revenge of the Birds. Keep the conversation going by visiting RevengeOfTheBirds.com. Follow us on Twitter at RevengeOfBirds. You can also find us on iTunes at Facebook.com/RevengeOfTheBirds.